Well, I think in particular the reason your show is so important is because you brought this one man show of this timeless story. It's one of there's so many copies that have been sold, they don't even have a record of how many have been sold. Some say it's second only to the Bible of copies that have been sold. It's the most beloved piece of fiction in the world. And the fact that you brought that to people in Wytheville, even if you go see John Hardy's program, which everybody should, that's in Marion, and a lot of people from Wytheville can't get to Marion. But the fact that you brought it to Wytheville and had it just around the corner, people didn't understand, if you were not a Christmas Carol enthusiast, just what a gift you have brought us, because those readings that you do are in the fashion of the very readings that Charles Dickens did himself. And many of the books that followed Christmas Carol did not sell as well, and he made his living by doing readings across the world. I think he even toured the United States doing readings of Christmas Carol. And he was very flighty and fly by the seat of your pants, and it would not be unlike him to show up without a copy and looking flustered, and you definitely had the look down of Charles Dickens if people didn't even know that. But what makes your particular telling of the story special is that I imagined it said, because I do read the playbill before, it said a cozy sitting room in 1867. So I imagine you arriving by train at the Wytheville Depot, which is 2 blocks from my house, arriving in. And at that time, there was no bigger star. There was no movies, there was no television. The big stars were literary stars. Acting was even considered decadent at that point. Theater and so the big stars were the literary stars, and to imagine a star as big as Charles Dickens coming to the Wytheville Depot, that really added to the allure and the excitement of the tale. Something that I really enjoyed about this show, and you said voices, and you being from Wytheville, you talk just like I do. If I got up and did a reading of A Christmas Carol to an audience in Wytheville, everything would sound like Barney Fife, because I am from Wytheville, Virginia. What can I say? But you were able to do the Cockney voices very well. It seems like it's very fun to do Mrs. Dilber, because she has a very sharp English accent. You can do a bit of Irish, and you can have flourish with people like the jollier spirits of the program, like Fred and Fezziwig and the Ghost of Christmas Present. When my wife saw you, she said, he will be the perfect Ghost of Christmas Present. And I think that is because of your spirit. You're so kind and gentle and welcoming to people, that you embodied the people of the story who are supposed to embody the spirit of Christmas. Those were your best characters, I think.
Thank you.
And it was fun to, as I said, to watch you do Mrs. Dilber and different things like that. The boy down in the street.
I hope Marley came across as not only sorrowful but a little bit scary.
Well, yeah, you had kind of that's the next thing I was getting to, is that what this story did was the beautiful, where I've never been to a show where the lighting told more of the story than this show did.
That was 100% Joe Burnett. He had thoughts on that. He and Elizabeth Smith, our lighting operator and designer, and they got together. And that did take some time. in rehearsal. We met once a week for rehearsal in the space, and only had one dress rehearsal, as a matter of fact. But they worked out all the details. Both of them are just brilliant. I've worked with Joe for almost 30 years. I worked with Elizabeth for 30 years in theater, and they both are so good at what they do. They tell me that the lighting effects are really good. I can't see them myself, of course.
They are very good. They are brilliant, and I mean, they really pull you into the story.
They get 100% credit for that. I had no input on that at all.
You know, with the voice enhancement with Marley, you kind of had an exorcist thing, a little bit of an exorcist thing happening with the voice, and you know that, yeah, and that was. One night after rehearsal, Joe and Elizabeth both said that's pretty frightening. I said, well, good, it should be. Yeah, but not only frightening, you have to see how tormented Marley is.
Correct.
He is not trying to be frightening. He is reacting out of, I mean, right. You're in hell. How much of a worse shape could you be in than be living in hell? And even visiting Scrooge, he was not free from hell. Hell came with him.
Yes, the fright part is just an added element that just part of his torment. So yes, it's not set out to be frightening; it's set out to be tormented, and the frightening part is just an after effect. So
and then at the end, the stage is almost completely dark when he is looking for the grave that has his name on it. And you're groping in the dark with Scrooge, and you can just barely see a tiny little bit of light to know where you are on the stage. And
I'm sure I've had people tell me, you know, you, of course, and other people that, yes, it was stunning to see. I wish I could see it. I do, but I'm thrilled that it is working that way. Joe and Elizabeth together are just brilliant at what they do.
Well, and we got to mention Joe. I've seen Joe. I've been reviewing plays at the college for years and years. Janice is my former film appreciation instructor, Dr. Janice Pryor, and I've seen many. She's a great mentor of mine, and I've seen many productions there. And Joe's been in just about all of them, and he's so funny and such a great actor, and it is the natural choice for him to be in the director's position. But one thing I want to say about Joe is the friendship that the two of you have. The two of you are such great friends. You know,
it goes way back, and more than theater.
And you have such a camaraderie, a groove between the two of you, that I asked him about what was it like to direct you, because in that particular, I mean, it's you telling the story, so you kind of have to let you do your thing. Where do you need to direct? And he said, well, it was more about, you know, memorizing where your marks are. But he said, one thing I said to Roger is, he said, when you do young Scrooge, I want it to be Scrooge's voice, but younger. And said somehow or another he did it. And he said, I wouldn't have been able to do it. I don't know how he did it, but he did it. And it's just basically he would give you something and you would run with it. But I think that is largely, aside from the talent that both of you have, I think the camaraderie between the two of you probably made that communication a lot easier and a lot more fun.
Well, many years ago, as I said, we've been working together for getting close to 30 years. But we established many years ago, without saying it out loud, without it undergoing any obvious change, that we will not blow sunshine up each other's skirts.
Right.
We will tell each other the truth about what we're doing on stage, because that's the only helpful thing that you can do. By just, glad-handing something to make someone feel better is not helping them or the show. So we are pretty blunt with each other about the things that we do, because it's helpful. Mm-hmm. And so I've done that with Joe over the years. He's done that with me, and he has been just a tremendous amount of help with this, because it's almost impossible for a person to direct themselves. It was necessary for him to see things and to point out things. Mm-hmm. And he has done that numerous times during this rehearsal process. And it made things better. He has a good eye. Mm-hmm. He has a good ear. And I was fortunate. I was fortunate to become friends with him so many years ago. And as I told them, we only have a 5-person production crew, and 4 of us have worked together for 30 years. And that gives me so much confidence on stage to know that they're out there and backing me up and helping. It's a tremendous feeling. So I don't have to worry about that. All I have to do is worry about my job, and I know they're going to do theirs, and they do it excellently. Joe's he's just a wonderful, wonderful person. Wonderful.
Well, and I came out and I said, do you think I could get a shot? Could you send me one of the shots from the rehearsals to include with the article? You ended up using the picture of my family and I with you. I think that one turned out better and meant more to me personally. So I went ahead and used that one. But, Joe was joking with me. I don't know why you want a picture of him to go with your, but, if you're sure you want one, and then, watching you two go back into the theater together and just bantering back and forth. That kind of friendship is really invaluable, and it was an essential quality for the cohesiveness of the show, I think.
I think so. This is the first time Joe has directed me in a play. Mm-hmm. I have directed him once before when two years apart, back in early 2000s, we did a show called The Boys Next Door. Mm-hmm. And Janice Pryor had, of course, directed it the first time. We put up another production 2 years later, and I directed it. I was in it, but I also directed it. So Joe and I are even on that scale now. I've directed him once; he's directed me once. So, and I'm just thrilled that he is, pretty much calling the shots, and he's done so much good work technically. Over the years, he's worked with me building sets, designing sets, but this one was on his own. And so some of the pieces, of course, were just brought out of storage, the chair, the table, the bookcases and whatnot. But the fireplace he built himself, which I think is just beautiful.
Mm-hmm. It is a beautiful set. And I thought Roger must have done the set, and I looked at the play, and nope, it's Joe.
Oh, Joe did it 100% himself. He really worked hard on deciding what we needed, and then they built that fireplace hearth, which I just think is a beautiful piece, and I'm very, very proud of him. He can do a lot of things. You don't really know so much by just talking to him, but trust me, he's invaluable when it comes to theater work, and very good at what he does.
Coming back to the beginning of the show, where I said I think you bring the crowd in from the very beginning when you come in to applause. Not everybody even knows to do that, but I think even though you establish by Joe calling for you that you are Charles Dickens, I think it would still, because you're so well known locally, it would still be difficult for some people when you come running in as, oh, that's Roger,
Correct,
because people know you. But I didn't, as long as I've known you, I didn't do that. When you came in, I said, that's Charles Dickens. And I think, you're saying, does anybody have a copy of Christmas Carol? And people from the audience, they're talking back to you, or at least they were on Friday night when I was there.
I believe on that opening night, when I asked for a copy of the book, I heard someone go, well, why don't you just tell us the story?
Right.
And it was great. Sometimes you just have to think on your feet and when things happen that you don't expect. But I thought that was perfect. That was perfect. It wasn't planned. I'm not sure who said it. But I thought, this is great. I've established now.
But you had us. You had us in the palm of your hand, and I hope audiences were even better for you on Saturday night. And I hope after my review, I hope you'll be sold out Wednesday and Thursday. That's my goal.
They have been relatively small crowds, but it's been very
enthusiastic.
Well, enthusiastic, and it's been very, very gratifying that so many people have come up to me afterward and just have been so enthused about the show, and that's very gratifying. Whether it's a full house or a small house,
it's a happy house. That's the main
happy, exactly. Happy and content and grateful. So then it's very, very gratifying. It makes it all worth it when people come out and just are so enthusiastic. They're just so pleased with what they had seen. So even with a small house, it still makes it worth it.
Because these are our people. This is Wytheville. These are people that you know they're rooting for you. They love the story, but the wonderful thing about that is there are people still around today, around here anyway, who don't know the story, and you're bringing it to them. It's hard to believe that that's the case, but it is. And
and a lot of us, I've had talk to several young people who clearly weren't familiar with the story, but they were just thrilled with it, and that's a good thing to get them interested in it. I've talked to several young people that came out and encouraged them to read the story.
Right.
And,
right.
And it's not like they have to go out and buy it. It's public domain. You can find it online.
You can hear it on YouTube being read word for word.
Right. The possibility and listen. I think if people once they read the story, and I think they'll just be in love with it. I don't know how it could be otherwise.
How you cannot. If you like Christmas, because Christmas as we know it today, even Santa Claus is so defined and outlined by that story. Because even the modern day Santa Claus as we know it was sort of morphed from the Ghost of Christmas Present in part. And
Joe even said that in rehearsal. He said, make that guy as much Santa Claus as you can.
Yeah, because that's who Santa Claus came to be. Who is he if not the Ghost of Christmas Present?
It's just a perfect story. It's a perfect story.
And my daughter is 9 years old. I read it to her and my wife every year. My mother last year, she got me a board game, which is you win it based on Christmas Carol trivia. And
really?
She beat us all. 3 generations of Christmas Carol lovers, and she beat us all. I was so proud. And I said, my baby's going to know that story, and she's going to tell it to her kids, and she's going to say, my dad read it to me. And, what more could Christmas be about than that?
That's true.
Yeah.
And I will watch every version that's on TV. As a matter of fact, just this evening, I've got my a timer set on the television. It's the Jim Carrey version, which isn't necessarily one of my favorites, but I will still watch it every time it's on.
What is your favorite? I must ask that question before we go.
I would say probably it's hard to say. The Alistair Sim version is very good. The original Owen one is very.
It's a brutal question. It's a brutal question. It really is. But you got to answer it.
That's the original Owen version.
And that
children, but I love that because it's a different take on Bob Cratchit. But I think Gene Lockhart just is so adorable in that. And
that is my favorite too. And he is also Henry X. Harper in Miracle on 34th Street. So I think he is kind of a definitive Christmas movie character. You know,
right.
When I'm envisioning Bob Cratchit in my mind, when I'm reading the story, I'm thinking of Gene Lockhart. And Scrooge, I'm probably thinking of Reginald Owen. For years and years and years, my favorite was Alistair Sim because it goes into the company of how Scrooge and Marty came to be and how they became such evil partners in crime. Which is something I always wanted to know about, but it's just the most faithful version. It's just a nice, smooth, Reginald Owen is it's the best. I don't think you can beat it. Jim Carrey could have been with that animation. They could have knocked it out of the park because. The animation, it looks like it jumped off the page. I think they made a mistake casting Jim Carrey because he had to be goofy and funny all the time. And
that's true.
They're wasting so much time chasing, and he's screaming and shrinking down to the size of a pea and running through a sewer. That's unnecessary.
Exactly. I don't understand any of that. And one particular part, not to cast aspersions on them, but during the Marley scene,
when his jaw breaks.
His jaw breaks is terrifying, but when he ties it back up and then there's a comedy bit for 5 seconds, like that wasn't necessary.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. That's what I say to my wife every year. That was a very serious part, and they made it funny. And
I don't quite get that, but I do watch it for the story. But different versions, I love different things. I love David Warner's take on Bob Cratchit in the version he's in. I adore the George C. Scott version, of course. Just so many different things. I just love everyone's different interpretations.
Now, George C. Scott is the only one I know that shows Belle's family, and that was in the book.
Right. I can't say that I'm a fan of the Patrick Stewart version. Again, I love the story, but there's parts about it I'm not of that. But I will still watch it. If it's on, I'll still watch it.
Yes.
The worst version, obviously,
Kelsey Grammer.
Exactly. And no one ever shows it on television. I look every year and hoping someone will show it because it's so bad. But yes, thank you for agreeing with me. That one is embarrassing to watch.
And I was so disappointed because I love him as Frasier, and he's a brilliant actor. And I was so disappointed because I thought, this is going to be so good, and I was disgusted with what they did with it. And also the FX version is horrible.
I have 2 short versions on DVD. One, the Seymour Hicks version.
Yep. I've not watched that. I need to.
It's only 61 minutes, so it's a cut-down version. And I also have a version here from 1949 with Vincent Price.
It's about,
it's 25
minutes. I've seen that, yeah.
So the Seymour Hicks version it's different. It's like I said, it's only an hour, so they don't hit everything, but it's interesting to watch. Anything from obviously from the 1930s or 40s. It's a different film style. And,
sure.
And so yes, I am fascinated by this story. Needless to say, so it was a great opportunity.
And your performance is something that I think would be the ultimate Christmas gift to our community. It's something I'd love to see every year. I don't know if that will happen, but that would be my Christmas wish, is that you would do that for Wytheville every year, because I think
we're talking about it. You brought it up, and Joe and I talked about it afterwards, and we'll see. If we decide to do it, I have to decide a little early so we can get hopefully better dates. Unfortunately, this time we weren't able to schedule dates that we wanted. The community college already had dates plugged in. That's why we're finishing this up at a Wednesday and a Thursday slots. So that's a little unfortunate.
Well, if I've planted a seed, that's good enough for me.
Well, we may do it. It's one little thing here that wasn't really planned was I typically shave my head all the time.
Right.
I shaved it time when I did Scrooge the musical as Marley. It was very stark, and I thought it was a good idea, and it was a good look for me, so I just kept it for more than 20 years. Last year, I just decided, on a whim, like I do many things, to let my hair grow. So it had been more than a year since I had cut my hair, and then we were talking about this show, and I told Joe, I said, well, I'm getting ready to cut my hair off finally. He said, no, you have to keep it now. He said, that looks very, very Dickens. So this is unusual for me to have this much hair. So if we go to do the show again, I have to decide what to do with my hair, whether to just let it grow,
right,
or go back or start all over again. So we are talking about the possibility of doing it again. I think it would be a good thing. I do.
Well, to do Dickens, you've got to have the hair. It's different. Doing Dickens is different than doing Scrooge. So you can do it as Scrooge, or as or as the general narrator who doesn't give himself a name, as John Hardy does.
Right, and I don't want to do it with a shaved head. When I was with the barber, when I first started down there, my head was shaved, which worked great I was doing 4 shows at one time, and one show was a review, a Gilbert DeSullivan review called Pirates and Pinafores, and my shaved head worked well in that. But doing 1776 at the same time, of course, I had to wear a powdered wig, as we all did. So it worked in that, but I wouldn't want to wear, a wig in something else, not like this. So I'll have to study on this. Yes, I feel the person probably does need hair for this character, for it to look authentic. So, but we are talking about it. After the initial fear, and frankly, this show is terrifying. But I mean, with this, so as I said, it's just daunting.
But you're drawn to what's terrifying because it's challenging.
Well, true. And every performance, it's still a little terrifying. Usually, when you're on stage, if you deliver lines and you're waiting for other people to deliver their lines, and you have time to think. I don't really have time to think. I just have to keep going. So it's a little terrifying at times. But but now that I've gotten over the initial shock, I still have to leave it terrifying. That's the only way to do it. I can't be complacent about it. I have to, like I said, I have to attack the show. But after this initial run, I think it would be a little easier to mount again another year. I'm leaning toward possibly, yes, looking about doing this again. I think it's a good show. I think it's a story that, like you said, some people that aren't familiar with it's a story they should hear, and hopefully enjoy. And and not least of which to open up, their minds to reading and, reading and learning and exploring. It's a wonderful thing for everyone. So if this would inspire, especially the younger people who come, if this would inspire them to read the story and that hopefully it would lead to reading more stories. I read a lot. I read all the time. One entire wall of my dining room is my library. I have floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. They're just covered. Probably 1,000 books. I read all the time.
Well, I thank you for giving me so much of your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I look forward to you again sometime, and Merry Christmas to you and to Emily and to Bella.
Yes, and to you and yours as well, and hopefully we'll see you this week. If not, have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas season.
You too, sir.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.